Large orange groves often create a sense of peace and tranquility. But when the rows of trees begin to show signs of disturbance, the soft soil has been rooted up and new trails begin to appear, it is usually a sign that the wild boars have returned. Today, we continue our journey through these orange groves, where every encounter unfolds in a completely unpredictable way. Some opportunities appear and disappear within just a few seconds. Some pursuits stretch across different types of terrain, and there are moments when being just a second too slow can change everything. The morning begins with movement appearing on the far side of an earthen drainage ditch running along the boundary of the farm. One by one, the wild boars cross the ditch and move into the orange grove. The distance is favorable. Everything seems to be unfolding exactly as expected. But nature does not always give us the outcome we anticipate. In just a few brief seconds, the first opportunity of the day slips away. The sounder quickly scatters among the rows of trees, and the search begins again. Sometimes, it is the missed opportunities that make everyone even more focused. And not long afterward, an unexpected situation unfolds in the last place anyone would have imagined. Near a livestock watering area, everything remains completely quiet, until sudden movement appears from beneath the water trough. A wild boar bursts out at incredible speed, but this time, everything is already in place. The situation is handled far more smoothly and quickly than the previous encounter, a sign that today may still have many surprises waiting ahead. Continuing deeper into the cultivated area, we discover more fresh signs. The narrow paths between the rows of orange trees show that the boars were active here not long before. Then, without warning, a wild boar charges out from the dense vegetation. The moment happens in an instant, but it is enough to create another unforgettable encounter in the middle of an orchard during harvest season. Up to this point, every encounter has unfolded quite quickly, but the next challenge is completely different, because this time, it is not only people taking part in the pursuit. The sound of hunting dogs begins echoing from the distance. A wild boar is doing everything it can to escape the pressure behind it. It keeps changing direction, constantly searching for openings between the rows of trees. There are moments when it seems to have found a way out, but the chase continues. After breaking through several attempts to corner it, the situation finally comes to an end in an open area in the middle of the farm. It is one of the most intense moments since the beginning of the journey. If everything that has happened so far has been intense enough, the next situation demands even greater caution. After a long pursuit, one wild boar is forced down into a deep drainage ditch. From a distance, it seems that the gap has become very small. Some people might even think approaching it would be completely possible. However, this is exactly the kind of situation that is the most dangerous. A wild boar that has been cornered can react in extremely unpredictable ways. For that reason, we do not encourage anyone to approach or attempt to handle wild animals in a similar situation. Safety must always come first. After one encounter after another, we think we have seen everything this area has to offer. But But then, a massive figure appears on the far side of the field. Even from a distance, it is clear that this is no ordinary boar. Its size stands out across the entire orange grove. The wild boar keeps moving, trying to use the terrain to create more distance. A brief pursuit begins, and over the next few minutes, everyone's attention is fixed on the largest boar to appear that day. It is undoubtedly one of the most memorable moments of today's journey. As the sun begins to sink lower, we think the day's hunt has come to an end. But nature always knows how to deliver one final surprise. In a quiet corner of the farm, two wild boars are calmly moving together. The scene is a complete contrast to the intense pursuits that came before. Their appearance becomes the final chapter of the entire journey, and it also marks the end of a long day filled with unforgettable encounters throughout the orange groves. From the missed opportunities beside the earthen drainage ditch, to the relentless pursuits through endless rows of orange trees, every encounter brings its own unique challenge. That is what makes every journey in the field impossible to predict until the very last moment. And perhaps, somewhere else on this farm, another surprise is already waiting to appear on the next adventure. The hunt began almost as soon as we arrived in the area in North Dakota. This time, the conditions were noticeably tougher. The terrain was wide open, with almost nowhere to hide. Every movement could easily be spotted, and the wild hogs became alert almost immediately. Then suddenly, a massive group of hogs burst out in front of us, charging across at incredible speed. There were too many of them. Everything happened within a matter of seconds. Nowhere near enough time to deal with the entire sound. Even though we reacted fast, there was no way to control all of them. Most of the hogs quickly scattered and disappeared into the vast open ground ahead, leaving behind only fresh tracks and a missed opportunity that slipped away just as quickly. The wild hogs were moving far too fast across the open terrain, barely giving us any chance to stay on them. I immediately got on the radio with Nick, trying to get in position farther ahead to cut the sounder off. Everything had to happen fast, but once the hogs came charging through, their numbers were still overwhelming. Even with the better position, Nick alone couldn't contain all of them. The entire group scattered in multiple directions, turning the situation into complete chaos and making it harder to control than ever before. The wild hogs quickly split off in different directions, forcing us to immediately separate and track smaller groups on our own. There was no longer any clear formation. Each person had to handle whatever unfolded within their own area. While following fresh tracks, I spotted a massive boar that had just broken away from the group and sprinted straight into a field of tall grass, trying to disappear into cover. The thick grass concealed parts of its body, but the heavy movement still gave away its position. It thought it had escaped, but this time, the distance was just right. I quickly kept my eyes locked on the target, maintained visual control, and handled the situation before it could completely vanish into the dense grass ahead. On Nick's side, several of the wild hogs had already escaped into a towering reed field taller than a person, almost completely blocking visibility. In terrain like that, tracking becomes extremely difficult without help. Fortunately, he had hunting dogs with him. Only a few minutes later, aggressive barking erupted from deep inside the reeds. Under constant pressure, one of the hogs was forced to burst out from the thick cover in search of an escape route. And that was exactly what Nick had been waiting for. He was already holding position outside the reeds, watching the movement patterns ahead of time. The instant the hog appeared, the situation was handled quickly and cleanly, giving it no chance to retreat back into cover. Not long after, there was more movement coming from Nick's side of the reed field. The hunting dogs barked even harder, signaling that another hog was still trapped somewhere inside. Just seconds later, another wild hog suddenly exploded out from the thick reeds, desperately trying to escape. But this time, the moment it stepped into the open, it stepped directly into Nick's control zone. There was no second chance. The situation was handled immediately the moment it exposed itself, bringing another intense chase along the edge of the reed field to an end. Meanwhile, I decided to tighten the perimeter by pushing straight into a young sugarcane field where several hogs had just disappeared to hide. The sugarcane was still short, not tall enough to fully block visibility, making every movement inside easy to spot. And just as expected, after only a few seconds of watching carefully, I identified the position of a massive boar trying to conceal itself between the rows of cane. The distance was close enough. The visibility was clear enough. There wasn't enough time for it to react. Immediately, I handled the situation decisively, stopping the boar on the spot before it could push any deeper into the field. Eventually, Nick and I regrouped right there in the sugarcane field after sweeping through the entire area and finding no signs of any remaining hogs. As the sun slowly dropped over the vast fields of North Dakota, we finally wrapped up the intense hunt. From high-speed pursuits across open ground to close chases through reed beds and sugarcane fields, everything happened fast, relentless, and with very little room for mistakes. This migrating wave of wild hogs was larger, faster, and far more cautious than before. But in the end, we still managed to bring the situation under control. Even so, looking toward the horizon where fresh tracks continued stretching farther into the distance, I knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. After gathering at our starting point in California, we wasted no time preparing. The plan had already been agreed upon. The team immediately split up and headed in different directions. Each person was assigned a specific area, following the routes that solitary wild boars were most likely using to stay hidden. There would be no group approach this time. These would be independent tracking missions. Communication was kept to a minimum, used only when coordination was absolutely necessary. And from that moment on, the hunt truly began. A gunshot shattered the silence in the forest. In an instant, the entire hillside ahead erupted into chaos. Movement appeared from multiple directions. Grass and brush shook violently, and then Nick realized what was happening. A large sounder of wild boars had suddenly appeared right in front of him. The wild boars scattered in every direction, using the steep terrain to escape within seconds. Although Nick reacted immediately, he could not control the entire situation. In the end, only one of them stopped. Right on the trail I was following, a sudden burst of movement exploded from the brush beside me, and it charged straight across my path. The distance was extremely close. There was no room for mistakes. Everything happened in an instant, but it was also a clear sign that there was still far more activity in this area than we had realized. The deeper I went, the steeper the terrain became. Every step felt heavier as I climbed higher along the hillside. But it was there that an unexpected sight appeared right in front of me. A very large boar. It moved calmly along the slope, seemingly unaware of my presence. A rare opportunity, and also its mistake. Without hesitation, I quickly took control of the situation and acted before it had any chance to react. Things unfolded just as quickly on Nick's side. As soon as he reached the western hillside, a sudden movement appeared among the scattered trees. The first wild boar had revealed itself. The distance was not far, and the steep terrain made movement difficult for both sides. But Nick managed to gain the positional advantage. Without wasting time, he quickly took control of the situation and handled it cleanly before the wild boar could rush down the slope and escape. A fast start, and another sign that this area was still much more active than we had expected. As he moved higher up the slope, his view opened across the entire area below. That was when Nick spotted a clear movement, a wild boar charging uphill from below, trying to escape the area that had just been disturbed. The distance was considerable, but this time, Nick had the advantage. With his newly equipped optic, he held his position and watched the boar's movement for a few brief seconds before taking action. From a long distance, the situation was handled with precision, completely cutting off its escape route on the steep hillside. Finally, after nearly 2 hours of continuous movement through California's steep hills and open woodland, we discovered another clear sign. Near the top of a hill, a slight movement appeared behind a patch of low brush. A wild boar was hiding there. It was not moving in a hurry. Instead, it remained concealed, using the vegetation as cover. It was obvious that this would not be an easy animal to approach. But this time, I did not allow the situation to drag on. As soon as I confirmed its position, I immediately controlled the distance, maintained a stable viewing angle, and acted decisively before it could disappear deeper into the terrain behind it. There would be no escape. And with that, the final target on the hill that day was finished. In the quiet stillness of the hillside, everything returned to normal almost immediately. But I understood one thing clearly. Every wild boar controlled here meant a little more protection for the cornfields below.